Well, good morning, everyone. It's now 11:30. We're going to go ahead and kick off our pre-commission agenda. I just want to start things off with a little update. So if you have seen the emails or the news about the city of Boise launching a quarterly review crash committee meeting, I just want to kind of illuminate some details to that. So myself and Ryan will be attending those. Ryan is going to be our staff representative on those quarterly meetings, and this first one on Thursday tomorrow is going to be open to the public, so folks can tune in. They can see how we're going to be structuring the meetings, and just the scope and the scale of what we're going to be reviewing. So I know that there's been some questions about that and how we're going to be involved, and we're doing this in partnership with the city, and hope other municipalities, if they want to do something similar, will follow suit. So with that, are there any general housekeeping items? Commissioner Hanson.
So, Madam President, yes, I appreciate the good work that our staff has done on some of the requests I made on the 5-year plan. There's one I want to sort of bump to the top, and that's a request by the Barber Valley, because the school is going to be opening later this year, the new school. They just keep adding and adding and adding, as planned, residences out in that valley. They've asked that the speed limit be consistent 35 throughout. I'd like the commission to give the thumbs up to this. I agree, we have delegated a lot of authority to the director. That's under a number of things. I'd like the commission to actually sign on and say yes. So to bring that up perhaps next week, and get a little report of when the school is anticipating opening. The other aspect of that is the 2 new crosswalks, which we've put in on Maynard and Skybar, and the speed limit's still 40 out there, but there are no traffic calming that leads up to those crossings. So I just want to report perhaps a little later. The immediate one is the one related to the school and the need for speed limit reduction on that segment from 40 to 35. And then the other is tied in with some sort of temporary traffic calming or something leading up to those crosswalks. I just have a concern that the only difference between early in the summer and now is that we now have a crosswalk. The road itself still is 40, and it feels like a freeway. So those are the 2 things I'd like a report on. And if we could just go ahead and make a decision on the neighborhood's request, I think that'd be great.
Madam President.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Just so that Jim will know, the official opening date for that school is the end of next week. 19th. And at least that came from their superintendent and Doug Fowler on Monday. But it's nowhere near. It ain't gonna happen.
I just drove past there. It doesn't look like they're ready to open. So I think the updated date is right after Christmas.
That would be more reasonable.
The staff know, I'm looking. Well, that's why I think we should probably have a report on this next week if we could. Thanks.
Director Wong.
Madam President, Commissioners, Commissioner Hanson, thank you. Earlier this morning, I know you haven't had an opportunity to take a look at this yet, but we did send you an update on what we'd like to do, and one of those things was to immediately, around that school, lower the speed limits to 35 miles an hour. So again, I know you've delegated that to me in the past, but unless there are any objections, I'd like to move forward on that.
I strongly support that, and if there's no objection, I know we haven't listed this as a decision briefing, but I'd like that to happen around the school. But I think it's important that we understand. It sounds like there's different moving parts out there. Understand, and the neighborhood understands how we're working with the school district and the city to make it all happen so that the day the school opens, it's a safe place for those kids to walk.
I guess, so commissioners, do you have a preference on having a formalized report from staff and having a decision made then, or do we want to kind of give a consensus about moving forward now?
Madam President.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Moving forward now would be just fine with me. I've spent a lot of time out there in the last week.
Commissioner Gold, that's a head nod from you.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Commissioner McKinney.
I'd kind of like to have a more
complete picture of all the facts. I mean, I don't think I don't necessarily have any concerns, but to know what are the extents, how far is the speed limit change going to extend, and so on. So I would appreciate just sort of have the full picture in mind before saying thumbs up or thumbs down.
So how about we do this, Director? How about we do have a formalized report, just for, I think, one, for our situational awareness, to know the details about the corridor, and especially as we've gotten calls from different cities and citizens about standardizing our speed limits. I think this is gonna help in that conversation as well, but feel free to move forward in the ways that you can, but with that in mind, that we're gonna have that formalized report.
Madam President, as always, thank you. So I want to make sure I have your guidance crystal clear. Move forward immediately around the school on 35 miles an hour. We already have a report that's ready to go to show the entire area. Our staff has done a tremendous job. Ryan's group, of course, are already looking at this, and we do have recommendations. So, Commissioner McKinney, I can actually send that to you and the entire commission as soon as we're done with today's meeting in your emails. But I would like to move forward on reducing that speed limit. And we'll have this ready for you next week.
I guess I just want to be really clear. Please do that, but I do want to have something next week on the record that is presenting that data and that information. Thanks, Mr. Hanson. Any other housekeeping items? Any questions about the agenda? All right, Director.
Well, Madam President, Commissioners, again, good morning and thank you. Just a couple of housekeeping items for this report. First off, earlier today, we were presented with this magnificent plaque from the APA Idaho Awards Planning Tool Award. ACHD Integrated 5-Year Work Plan, the GIS tool that we've integrated that makes the much more transparent to the community. And so our team, again, took away the gold, and we'll have this up proudly displayed here because it is very, very important on this issue. I'd also like to remind all of you that at 12:20 today, all your cell phones are going to go off. FEMA is doing a national test. I don't know if they're silenced, if they'll still go off or not, but around 12:20 we may have a little bit of interruption in your meeting, all for the good things across the board. Commissioners, we sent out a note recently about the ACHD Flex Spending Plan. If you're interested in being a part of that, the final day to file is the 22nd of October. If you have any questions at all or would like some more information, I can have HR contact you at your convenience. But if you'd let me know if you're interested, we'll move forward on that. On October 10th, and we just finished an amazing all-team breakfast and such. If you go anywhere near the Adams facility, you'll still smell lots of bacon and onions, and it's going to be out there for the next couple of days. Commissioner Goldthorpe, I know you know what I'm talking about on this across the board. But on 10 October, we're having our annual ACHD Chili Cook-Off. So if any of you would like to either enter or participate, please let us know, and we'll make all the arrangements. On the 25th of October is the Phase 2 Discovery Park ribbon cutting ceremony in Meridian. I think we sent a notice out a little earlier, but if any of you are interested and want to attend, please let Stacy know, and we'll take care of all the arrangements. It's the 25th of October. It's the ribbon cutting Discovery Park Phase 2. It begins at 12:30 and such. And again, if you're interested, please let Stacy know, and we'll go from there. Commissioners, we've been working with the Faces of Hope regarding our formal presentation. I'd like to let you know it's on 1 November and such. So this will be a big deal. And so the leadership team from Faces of Hope will be here. We'll make sure this is on your calendar. And then on the 29th of November is the 77th Annual Association of Taxpayers of Idaho's Conference. Commissioner Goldthorpe, you've already signed up for that. And so if any other commissioner would like to participate, please let us know. We'll sign you up, and we'll take care of all of the administrative requirements. So commissioners, in front of you, you also have the next impact fee report. And as you can see from those results to this date, the city of Meridian continues to accelerate in both commercial and in residential, impact fee, contributions. So commissioners, with that, that is my director's report for today. I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Thanks, Director. Commissioners, any questions?
Madam President?
Commissioner McKinney?
Director Wong, can you tell us what is, approximately the current, impact fee? I mean, we've had a surplus. What's the balance at the moment in our
Approximately
impact fee?
11 million? Oh, yeah, got the expert right there, $10 to $11 million.
Okay, great,
Mhm.
thank you.
Dropped by half then, huh? Half of what it was last year.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll find it for you.
20.
We can send it to you. Any other questions? Thanks, Director.
Couple minutes.
All right, yeah, we'll be, recessed until noon. Thank you. All right, welcome everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's now 12 o'clock. Welcome folks online and in person. Please join us in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first order of business is to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second. So moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next order of business is to adopt the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered routine and are action items unless otherwise noted. The consent agenda is enacted by one motion. There is no separate discussion on items on the consent agenda. If a commissioner or citizen would like, they may request any item be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. If we do not have any of those requests, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney,
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner McKinney and Commissioner Hanson. Okay, moving on to our regular agenda. We have nothing on the regular agenda, so we'll move over to public communications. Is there anyone that would like to address the commission at this time? Welcome, Ms. Cynthia Gibson.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the Commission. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. My name is Cynthia Gibson, and my address is 1615 North 11th Street, Boise, Idaho, 83702. Formerly, I lived at 2004 North 9th Street, and I lived there from 1995 until last April. And I would like to talk to you about traffic calming in the North End, and specifically 8th and 9th Streets today. So, the traffic issues with the North End actually go back to about 1977, as demonstrated in a staff report by Boise City Planning at a public hearing on Somerset Ridge, with a quote, "Without question, increased traffic on North 8th and 9th Street will be most severe." I have some historic documents. I'm happy to leave them with you today if you'd like to read the history on the neighborhood. My personal journey for traffic calming along 9th Street began in earnest in 2019, when I partnered with ACHD to install temporary bulb outs on 8th and 9th Streets to improve safety for Longfellow Elementary students and parents. So I have a couple of slides. I'm looking at Stacy. Oh, good. Okay, good. All right. So the first.
Hold on a second. Hold on, Cynthia.
This will advance slides. Oh, wow. Okay, good. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so what we did at Longfellow Elementary was we did curb extensions or bulb outs. This is the corner of 9th Street and Sherman. We did these on a total of 3 intersections that are on 8th and 9th Street. They're streets that are regularly crossed by students. And as you can see, it did a lot for safety. Let's see if I do it. Okay, there we go. A lot for safety. I want to point out something on this. So this is looking east at that corner, Sherman and 9th. And you can see there's a couple cars stopped right there on 9th. And not only did this improve safety for the people walking across the street by shortening the crossing distance and improving visibility, it also helped motorists. What we saw a lot of was when motorists were coming from one of these side streets like Sherman, and they wanted to turn left or right onto 9th, this allowed them to go further out into the intersection to make that turn. In the North End, we're very short on garages and driveways, so most people do park on the street. So it can make visibility very difficult. This chart shows that most people who took our survey, we handed out a survey to anybody on the street. We put it out on social media. We wanted to get feedback. And most people who experienced these temporary curb extensions supported permanent curb extensions. So 81% said yes, 19 said no. And then the majority of the people who took the survey were drivers. So it wasn't all people walking or biking. And then this was some data that we took on speeds. We took, with our radar guns, we went out there before we did the temporary traffic calming. And then we went out there during and we collected speeds because we wanted to see, do they work? And what we found was, yes, they do work. Oh, I think that's all I have. Thanks, Stacy. Okay. So in spring of 2021, my 8th Street neighbor and I collected homeowners' signatures for an ACHD traffic calming petition. We went door to door to meet with homeowners, plus we mailed letters to landlords to collect the required 75% of homeowners' signatures. So to meet the requirements set by ACHD policy, we collected 208 signatures. After submitting the petition in May 2021, an ACHD staff person suggested I encourage neighbors to submit comments on the 2021 integrated 5-year work plan because 8th and 9th were on there. Out of the 157 total comments received countywide, 33% of them were from 8th and 9th Street residents. And I have all the comments and I also have all the signatures if you want to look at those, but I'm sure they're in ACHD. I'm not sure how to express the desire of my neighbors along 8th and 9th Streets to reduce motorist speeds. Our streets are lined with homes, schools, and daycares. In fact, there are 2 schools between Fort and Heron adjacent to 9th, and 4 schools adjacent to 9th between State and Heron. Since 9th Street is functionally classified as a local residential road that is treated like a collector, I'll put that in air quotes, not really sure about that terminology. It's also a connector to Camel's Back Park and the 9th Street Foothills Trailhead, plus there's an 8th Street Foothills Trailhead. We request that the posted speed be reduced to 20 miles an hour. As you all know, posted speed works much better when road design matches the desired speed. Therefore, we invite commissioners, staff, project manager to work with us to slow vehicles to 20 miles per hour. We currently have speed bumps on our streets around Longfellow Elementary, but we believe today's modern traffic calming is more effective to slow vehicles than speed bumps. We would like to see some temporary calming along our street in the form of bulb outs, chicanes, pedestrian islands, raised crosswalks, mini roundabouts. Those are some recommendations to determine which is most effective before installing permanent infrastructure. I recommend that whatever you do to 9th Street, you consider treating 8th Street in a similar fashion. Finally, thank you for your hard work and effort on the speed management policy. I can testify that 75% of homeowner signatures is a high bar. I understand how difficult revising and passing policy can be, and I also know how important updated policy is to moving our community forward. So thank you for your outstanding effort, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Cynthia. Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Gibson? Commissioner Gold?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Cynthia, for being here and for the presentation. Are those documents something that you could email to the commission?
Yep.
Okay,
I can have them in your inboxes today.
great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam President,
Commissioner Goldthorpe?
I owe Cynthia an apology. I had no idea what you were coming here for today. And when you were on our regular agenda, which by law allows everything to be an action item, I didn't see that it was totally appropriate. Had I known what you were going to be presenting and asking, I never would have made the request to move you to community. Holy cow.
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, it's fine. I still got up here and was able to say what I wanted to say, so thank you.
Yeah, I know, but we weren't able to give you a yes or no.
That's true.
So Madam President
Commissioner Hanson?
and Cynthia, when did you turn in the signatures?
Last year.
April of 21, I believe.
21 or 22?
Pardon
It
me?
was 21.
21, so
21.
21, so about a year and a half ago. What's the response been?
Well, so the staff person who I dealt with, John Wasson, has been fantastic to work with, and I called him to follow up on it. He let me know he received them. I have received no other formal communication from ACHD other than that.
Okay.
And I think, we've kind of talked a little bit about this. I think that's where we want to be really diligent in the speed management policy. And again, that might not be a policy, it's a process of how we implement said policy, but that type of communication, and this is how it moves from, oh, yeah, you checked all the boxes, now what does it take to actually get it programmed, right? So whether that's a temporary rapid response project or something that needs to go in the integrated 5-year work plan,
Yeah.
or both, yeah.
Right, Madam President, I mean, we, my neighborhood, we've put signs out, that we got a small grant from our North End Neighborhood Association, encouraging people to slow down. A lot of my neighbors have moved off the street, because of the speeds. And, I have 2 neighbors here who would also like to speak today, so I don't want to take their thunder away, but it has been a long journey and a challenging journey. And I did find out just recently that Longfellow Elementary has always had a great program for the students to be crossing guards out on 9th Street. And this year they have eliminated that program because of safety. So that's sort of a traditional thing that we're used to seeing in our neighborhood of the kids out there with their signs, and it's really neat. And now they need, if you want to volunteer, they need volunteers. So there's just one more piece of history that's been removed.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Commissioner McKinney?
Thank you for coming forward, and I guess I would just say, encourage you to keep working with staff to try to keep pushing this forward. I don't know what may not have happened or what might have happened up to this point, but certainly it's something to go. You know, the biggest challenge when we have these residential neighborhoods, narrow streets, older homes, and so on, like you say, the biggest challenge with traffic calming from the standpoint of bulb outs and things like that at intersections is that they still got to accommodate fire trucks and school buses and things like that. And that, a lot of times, that's the biggest challenge when it comes to putting bulb outs in these kinds of neighborhoods. But by all means, keep pushing forward.
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. We did invite the fire department down to drive around our bulb outs. And so we did get their feedback, and they're okay on what we were doing. So I would encourage you, if you talk to people in your own districts, to encourage them. The fire department is happy to come down with one of their trucks and try to drive around. So that's what we did. Thank you.
And Cynthia, just really quickly, I appreciate you mentioning the visibility from a driver's standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is a challenge, navigating that network down there with the amount of parking. And just feeling, ooh, okay, gotta look for, there's a lot of, you do have to get into the intersection unless you're going really fast, and then you turn really quickly, and then a pedestrian could be in the crosswalk, right? So I really appreciate you highlighting that safety component to why a curb extension would benefit drivers as well.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Cynthia. Is there anyone else that would like to come up and speak to the commission? Yes, welcome. Hi, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, Emily Erickson, 2015 North 9th Street, Boise 83702, Cynthia's neighbor. I also brought copies of my presentation with a few photos that I'd like to hand out. Is that okay?
Oh, thank you, Stacy.
And I want to thank Cynthia for coordinating this and giving us the information to which we could present to you. I'll wait for you to get. So my husband and I have owned our house on 9th Street since 2014. And I grew up in Boise and always wanted to live in the North End because of the walkability, bikeability, and the access to the foothills. We are a 1-car family, and my husband commutes to work downtown on his bike, which he does not ride down 9th Street. He goes down 10th or 11th. Today I'm speaking to you about our concern for the speed reduction on 9th Street. And it started in 2021 when we signed the petition that Cynthia brought forward. And then we also did the morning speed clocking of traffic as an experiment, just to gather local neighbors volunteered after one of our retired police officer neighbors trained us. We did some speed gunning, and we live just 2 blocks from the park. So people come off Heron and come down 9th Street. And it was a bit concerning that how many people exceeded the speed over 30 and up to 40 miles per hour just in those 2 blocks. And then knowing that just beyond us is a daycare and Longfellow within 5 blocks of us with no stop signs or speed bumps until right before Longfellow. So that was a bit concerning, and I did find a alarming stat that said pedestrians are 3 times more likely to die when struck at 30 miles per hour versus 20 miles per hour. So the idea is that we could have 20 miles per hour and find actual ways to slow down the traffic would be ideal. We're expecting our first child this winter, and we have a young dog. So the safety of leaving our house, trying to get in the car, we park on the street like pretty much all of our neighbors on our block, is of priority. We're considering like fencing in our front yard or what other things that we can do. As it perceived as a residential street, you have a sense of safety, but then people do come very fast, and it can catch you off guard when getting in and out of your car or crossing. I've also reached out to several concerned parents at Longfellow. They are also putting it on their PTO agenda for this meeting or potentially the next one. And we're hoping to find creative solutions. And I did a little research on my own. I have a background in sustainability, so I'm always looking at interesting functional designs. So I highlighted, that's what a few of my pictures are on the following pages. And I also thought it was interesting while doing my research that the added benefit of some of these mini bulb outs could be stormwater runoff. And I included a picture here, since stormwater mitigation in the North End has been an issue also increasingly. So of Bend, Oregon, where they did use a bulb out and stormwater retention in a highly trafficked area in a neighborhood similar to the North End. And then in Bozeman, Montana, near a friend's house and their park, which is near their downtown, similar to Camel's Back, they did a fun mini roundabout garden container, which also had artwork, and then it was movable in the wintertime for the snowplows to come through. So I thought that was a creative solution, along with some information on how Seattle structures their mini roundabouts in the neighborhoods and how they also gain neighbors' participation, and the volunteers plant the flowers, they maintain the watering, things like that. And I think you can see from our engagement that the North End could probably rally around some creative structures that bring both art, sustainability, function, and safety to our neighborhoods. That's all I have. Any questions?
Oh,
that's the alert. Federal alert.
Really. Emily, thank you. Is that all of us turn off our notifications? Any questions for Emily? Thank you for this handout.
Madam President,
Goldthorpe.
I would just say, you know, just so you know, we are concerned about all this. Commissioner McKinney indicated that pretty well. Just recently, one of the PTO presidents from Hillsdale Elementary in Meridian, which is there by Eagle and Amity, and the YMCA, contacted us about a perceived problem with, just like yours, behind their school with kids who have decided they naturally want to cross the road at a different place than the crosswalk is. And so I was able to go out with our Deputy Director of Development Technical Services, Ryan Head, and lo and behold, it was a real reasonable request they had. We're going to make it happen because it's safer for the kids in that school. And so I appreciate the fact that your neighbors, that Cynthia and some others know how to approach the solutions to these problems in such a constructive, civil, pleasant manner. And I think that you've all experienced the fact that that works.
Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Emily. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to address the commission at this time? Oh, come on up.
My name's Laura Stiles. I live at 1707 North 9th Street, Boise 83702. I will try to be very brief because I think Cynthia and Emily have done such a wonderful job of sharing our experiences and the things that we're concerned about. I guess there are several items that I think that I can add to what has already been said. I live two blocks from Longfellow, so I observe frequently the traffic as the children are getting out of school and people are coming home from school and home from work. And the speeds are pretty remarkable sometimes. I have 4 children, so I have children who have attended Longfellow, North, and the high school. I'm the mom of a special needs kid who attends the high school and is actually picked up by a bus, so I'm very aware of the needs of the streets to be accommodating to all of the traffic that goes through, not just the pedestrians and the bikers. But I think being able to move everyone safely through our streets is the biggest issue to me. I ride my bike to work, my husband rides his bike to work, my children walk to school, my son gets a bus to school, we drive cars, we do all of the things. And so I think we're really aware, as has been brought up already, of the kind of the concerns around driving safely in the North End, not just walking and biking safely. And I think particularly on 9th Street, as was demonstrated in some of the pictures that Cynthia showed with those temporary bulb outs, the streets are actually sloped, and I think that's to accommodate stormwater, which is very helpful. However, as you are trying to see to turn or to walk across the street, oftentimes you are needing to move past parked vehicles to kind of poke your head out and see, is it okay for me to cross? And if someone's driving at 35 or 40 miles an hour, that's pretty quickly a very dangerous situation. I did want to make particular thanks to all of the work that you've done so far on the modifications that have been made to the roads, because I think what we have seen in the plan is it has gone from plan to actual implementation through the North End, kind of along Hill Road, and moving towards 13th Street, is that those are really effective, and they seem like everyone is happy with that, both vehicles and pedestrians. And so my hope is that the projects that have already been approved will just move forward so that we can continue that safety through over to the 4th Street area of the North End. I work as a PA downtown. I'm a family practice PA. And the other thing that I think is just important as we are conceptualizing all of this, and kind of the full length of 9th Street, not just our little area along Longfellow, is that many of my patients actually live in the low-income housing through the North End and downtown areas, and don't necessarily have vehicles for transportation. So they are relying on sidewalks, relying on motorized wheelchairs, relying on bicycles to get to their appointments, to get to the grocery store, to just get outside. And so that's something that I want to make sure that they continue to be able to do safely, without worrying about what's going to happen if they get stuck in the crosswalk or they aren't able to make it safely through before a vehicle comes. Along that note, I wanted to thank you so much, because I think in the adoption of the, and I'll make sure I get this right, the PROAG portion of the access management policy that was recently approved, I think that you have demonstrated that that's important to all of us, and that's something that we're committed to really making our neighborhood safe for all users, vehicles, pedestrians, bikers, and the like. So I think that's really important. Last point, and I think we all are aware of this, but my youngest daughter is about to start driver's ed, and I am terrified as the mother of a new driver of her concerns with being able to see pedestrians and bikers as they come, and make sure that I am helping her to be safe as she navigates the streets around our home, and not have any issues there. And I think that that's something that is really important, that we just make sure that everyone understands how we're moving through our community in a way that's safe for them. Oh, I had one other question, and this came up during Emily's talk. And we have stop signs on every other residential street in the North End. And even if we were looking at potentially to accommodate emergency vehicle traffic and bus traffic, and the bulb outs are not reasonable to accommodate that, if there's a potential for just implementing stop signs like we have on every other street to just slow traffic down. And so certainly we have people who are educated in how to move traffic safely, and I am not educated in that, but that was just an idea that I had to just try to calm traffic through our neighborhood. And I'm available for questions as well if there are any.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, any questions? We'll definitely be in touch. We're gonna look into some things, and we obviously can't make any decisions during a public comment period, but we'll be in touch. But thank you so much for taking the time and being here and sharing your stories with us.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Stacey, is there anyone else? Okay, well, with that, meeting is adjourned. We are gonna then roll into our post-commission agenda. We have a work session. It's the Linder Street, Pine Avenue, Ustick Road concept update. Welcome, Ms. Brooke Green.
Madam President, Commissioners, it's a privilege to be before you. I'll give a moment. For the record, my name is Brooke Green. I'm a Senior Transportation Planner within Projects and Planning. Before you this afternoon to introduce the Linder Road Pine to Ustick concept study. The purpose of today's presentation is to provide you a high-level introduction to the Linder Pine to Ustick concept. During today's presentation, I will review the study area, review the team's objective, look at the history that pertains to the Linder Road that includes the existing conditions, and lastly, wrap up with our public engagement process and the next steps you can anticipate in the coming months. The study area is no further north than West Ustick and no further south than West Pine Avenue. Local attractors, as you can see highlighted there, include Tolley's Park on the west side, Barbara Morgan Elementary School, their center, on the west side. I'm sorry, Tolley's is actually on the east side, Barbara Morgan is on the west side. And then on the corner of Pine and Linder Road, you have Meridian High School. In addition, I do want to highlight that this is Meridian's main corridor for their pathway connection. The projected team objective when the Linder Road is completed is to implement and achieve an improved corridor for all users, making it a residential arterial. This includes creating a roadway that enhances the environment for both bikes and pedestrians, achieving a level 1 or 2, while also recognizing the existing land uses along the corridor. Through a robust public engagement process, we will spend the next few months targeting outreach with our property owners along the corridor and a continued discussion with our stakeholders. This includes the City of Meridian, West Ada School District, in addition our ACHD committee participation. I do want to highlight in the coming weeks, we will have some one-on-one property engagements with property owners along the corridor that we may have identified as potentially their property could be impacted no matter what concept we put forward. The timing for this project is a high priority for the City of Meridian. In addition, we need to recognize that to the south, the Linder Road overpass is currently in design. The segment of Linder Road, Pine to Ustick, has been identified, as I mentioned, as the high priority project. This project is the middle segment along all of the Linder corridor and is following closely behind existing projects to the south, which include Linder Road Overland to Franklin. This is that before mentioned overpass. It's anticipated to be 4 to 5 lanes with a multi-use pathway. Current status is it's in design with construction anticipated in 2026 or 2027. To the north, you have Linder Road, Chinden Boulevard to State Highway 44. This is to be a 5 to 7 lanes with a multi-use pathway. Current status is currently in design with anticipated construction in the future. Our team started back in 2022, December 2022, with a public survey. We went to the public and wanted to gauge how they're currently using this corridor. I highlight 2 questions that were included into that survey. The first one, what type of transportation do you typically use on Linder Road? As you see, 392 respondents of the 411 who responded highlighted that they drive this corridor. But shortly behind that, you see bike and walking as high uses along that corridor. I do want to highlight, I did go out there during the school let out period, both for high school as well as the Barbara Morgan. And I will tell you, those who are walking and biking along the corridor are the children who are coming either from the high school or from Barbara Morgan Elementary School. And you'd see a lot of their direction of travel is either to adjacent neighborhoods or to Tolley's Park, which is identified there at the northern segment of the corridor. Other uses you can see highlighted there. The second question I want to highlight was, what should our priorities be as we work to improve Linder Road? And you're going to see of the 411 respondents, 314 highlighted safety, 336 highlighted alleviating congestion, 220 of them highlighted bicycle and pedestrian connectivity, and you'll see all the other highlights there below. Back to the point about bike and pedestrian connectivity, I want to highlight that it was adults who participated in this survey. They're oftentimes speaking for their children who are navigating this corridor from Barbara Morgan or from the Meridian High School. I put a series of quotes there at the bottom and just want to highlight a couple of those. For instance, along this corridor, the unique characteristic is that we have a lot of front-on housing. So I thought the quote there, I hear honking and screeching brakes daily as we almost have been hit a few times pulling out of our driveway. So that is the current dynamic, and the unique piece about this corridor is incredibly narrow. Other things you're gonna see, it's a bottleneck 2 lanes back into 2 lanes. So folks are very concerned about navigating through this space. They oftentimes are concerned about the traffic mitigation. You'll see that there in the quote to your furthest left. Bumper to bumper traffic, no matter what time of day, it's incredibly stressful. For those of us who here on the commission, as well as staff, were out there a couple weeks ago, we did see a significant amount of congestion, and we happen to be out there during the prime PM peak hour. To that point, I want to thank Commissioner McKinney, Commissioner Hanson, and Commissioner Gold for joining me the other week as we toured along this corridor to view several stops. We did 5 stops along the corridor with the PAG. We invited them out, handed them their own comment sheet. And I want to highlight that process and that engagement with our PAG. They were given the comment sheets to provide feedback. We stopped at Tolley Park. We went and visited the canal. We also went and observed the school pedestrian crossing there at Barbara Morgan Elementary School. We spent some time there at what I consider the pinch point, that is between Chateau and Sandalwood. And we also concluded our walking tour there at the high school PHB. Some of the observations from the PAG certainly was the amount of congestion through the corridor. We did actually see a lot of bike and pedestrian usage. Back to that point, the bike and pedestrian usage was a lot of kids navigating through that space. Some of the PAG feedback that I've received on the comment sheets that have come before me is when we're looking to make enhancements, and maybe we should narrow the roadway, maybe we should evaluate this for premier bike and pedestrian facilities. Roundabouts seems like a phenomenal idea, and then frontage roads. We will take their comment sheets, fold them into our concept and discussions with our technical team. We will respond back to each of them just as though they were every other stakeholder we'd engage with through this process. But having the PAG's participation early on in this concept development was a phenomenal opportunity for us on the technical team to hear what suggested items or approaches they would like for us to take on this corridor. I will tell you, we will be engaging with them in the future on future concepts, just the way we did with this one. Furthermore, their participation as we move forward with the Linder Road will fold them into the normal public outreach process where they'll be able to provide feedback when those concepts developments do come to fruition. This is the timeline, the Linder Road path to adoption, as we would like to call it. There you'll see back in December 2022 was our first outreach process. Between January and May of 2023, we started our data collection and our modeling. June of September 2023, we started that alternative development, exploring options, ideas. We are here in October through December. This is where we will develop the concepts, continue that property and stakeholder engagement. Like I mentioned earlier, in a couple of weeks, I'll be meeting with the property owners along the corridor. And then you'll see January through March of 2024, will be our final concept development, and spring of 2024 will be our adoption. I do want to highlight a couple times we will be doing our commissioners' check-ins. Well, I'll be before you right now here in October, back before you following our public engagement process that will take place at the end of December. I'm sorry, at the beginning of December. So I'll be before you in January, where we'll have a commission check-in. I'll highlight what we heard from the public during that PIM, what concept was the front runner. And then I'll be back before you in spring of 2024 for consideration for adoption. This concludes my presentation. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Brooke. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Commissioner McKinney.
Thank you, Madam President. Brooke, yes, thank you for that presentation. I look forward to looking at the various concepts that we come up with, and I appreciated the opportunity to walk the length of that, because that's been people in my part of the county have been talking about that for a long time, and recognizing that this is an area that needs attention, and it's going to be a big pill to swallow no matter what we do, because it needs work. I've got several specific comments. I did not specifically submit the response form after our walk of the project. I can give those to you now, or I can give them to you separately if you like.
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, I took diligent notes with many of your comments, but certainly would love to have those comments in writing so we can fold them into our further development.
I won't bother going over them now, but thank you for your close attention to it.
Certainly.
I just want to say thank you for highlighting the PAG input in your presentation, because for those of us that weren't there, and I think just also the public too, it helps them know, oh, okay, this is how they were a part of it. You're being really diligent with their feedback, and I just think that's a great way to present that to us. So thank you for that, Brooke.
Thank you, Madam President.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yes, thanks, Brooke. Did you get my notes?
Madam
on the
President,
walk?
Commissioner
I gave you
Hanson.
Yeah, I emailed some notes last week to you, which I'll email them again. I think this, I appreciated the walk. This really presents an opportunity to present the two visions of what Linder could be, because, and I would really firmly object to a project that just splits the baby. Right now, it's trying to be both a road and a street. And I think what we need to do is move forward and present a concept where it's a street. It looks like a residential arterial or a neighborhood residential arterial, much like Boise Avenue functions that way in the area I represent. And the other alternative is, as Commissioner McKinney pointed out, make it more consistent with the other arterials with 5 lanes, like 10 Mile and Meridian Road, which are adjacent. I think it's really important, because if we try and do both in one concept or two concepts that does a little bit of this and a little bit of that, I don't think it's going to work. And so I would ask the commission that we have two very distinct concepts. And then I would ask in terms of the input is have Meridian City decide. They made major investments in their greenbelt. They've made major investments, the school district too, and decide which ones they would lean towards. Because I think it's really important. It's always troubling when you have a question to people say, what do you want to do to address congestion? There's a false impression that if we widen this to 5 lanes, we're going to address congestion. It's going to be congestion to 5 lanes. I think the key is that the transition at either end is going to be important for people's perception. Oh, this is a different street. Otherwise, you're right. They'll be on 5 lanes, and then they go down to 2 lanes or 3 lanes, and then it's like, oh, it's congested. Well, guess what? 10 Miles congested at the peak hour too. Meridian's congested at the peak hour, and the east-west roads are all congested. So I think it's really that transition on the north and the south end is really key. You don't need the transition for the option that goes to 5 lanes. It just goes right through. I think it's really important too how we frame front-on housing, because on a street concept, the front-on housing is an opportunity. It's an investment people have made, and as we heard from the 9th Street observations, when it ceases to be a safe place, it undervalues it. And so as a street, it's an opportunity. for a road, when we need to condemn that property, we have to understand, okay, the value of this property has to be incorporated into whatever the condemnation would have to be. And so I think that really has to be part of of what we're doing. The other is the crossings, and we saw lots of crossings, and people will cross, and legally you can cross at any point in which a road intersects with another road. But on an arterial that takes a lot of traffic, like on 10 Mile, the designs have to be, we have to know that that's going to happen. So the design on a widening for 5 lanes is to prevent that. So we have, barriers to prevent people from walking across. Because right now there's no barriers. People can, and they did while we were walking out. They would dash across the quickest point. Whereas a street design, it would be much easier to do that with a speed. You could have far more crossings. But with a road on arterial like 10 Mile, you're going to have to only have a couple of crossings. And then with those two concepts, we can go to those residents, say, what's your preference? We can go to those churches, because I think there's 3 churches on there with parking lots, and the city with its investment in the park, and go to the schools. My suggestion is that we don't just end it at Linder, or we have a phase 2. We actually loop in a Sawtooth Middle School, because when I came there, I noticed that it's a challenge to get kids across that wide intersection. We might think about the transition actually being up at the middle school rather than somewhere south of Eustic. So I would ask that we have 2 concepts presented to the commission, to the city, to the residents. One that says we're going to make this a street arterial, neighborhood residential arterial, or we're going to make this a road, much like the other section line roads that we've widened out to 5 lanes on the east and the west.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Brooke, is it in the scope with consultants to come up with 2 different designs?
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, to your point about the 2 concepts, certainly that is what we are exploring as we move this forward. We acknowledge the unique circumstances pertaining to this segment of Linder Road, being that there's a lot of residential and a lot of local uses. So I look forward to bringing those concepts before you, in addition to the City of Meridian, to provide that feedback. And as we do with all of our engagement, we will be certain to plug in their participation and feedback into this and be back before you with those 2 concepts.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Brooke, for that. And I want to echo Commissioner Hanson's point about not trying to fit all these demands into one project. And I think there is a lot of value in having 2 separate designs. And I think, to your point, if we're looping in the city and all of that, that'll help make it easier on us to know this is what the city is envisioning the future for that. And anyway, it would just make it a lot easier on all of us. So I appreciate you being flexible in doing that.
Certainly, Madam President and Commissioners. I look forward to being back before you.
Okay, thanks. Oh, Commissioner Gold, did you have something?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. And I just want to also mention, and you did mention this a little bit in your slides, but one of the things that was highlighted through that PAG walk was that this is the city's direct connection to the Greenbelt, and so it's a unique corridor and has kind of higher, bike ped uses there, in addition to all the other reasons, but because of that as well. So I just want to echo those points too, and appreciate your work on that.
Certainly.
Thanks, Brooke.
All right. Well, thank you and have a good afternoon.
All right. Well, with that, we'll see you all next week.